as situation changes. And we'll also advise, of course, that while this plan sort of sets out a grand vision and potential programs, it will be the decision of councils, this council and successive councils at every budget time whether to move forward with projects. This isn't something that sort of formally boxes in any council or sort of ties the hands of future councils. It does sort of, it directs staff in terms of what funding requests will be coming to council for. However, council is always free to delay, move forward, or otherwise change plans. So this is more so the direction for staff going forward. Yeah, if adopted, the real goal here is to break that development stalemate with regards to sewer capacity and allow town staff then to move on to dealing with the stormwater constraints. So it's staff's recommendation that council adopt this plan, and that it inform staff budget requests for future years. That sort of concludes my prepared remarks. I am available, as well as the consultant who wrote the plan is available.
Thank you, Ryan. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you, Your Worship. You don't have to answer this, I guess, right now, but I am curious to know, like, based on the projections of the populations of the various neighborhoods, which neighborhoods and in what order would be the most beneficial for the town to, say, promote development in order to recover invested monies the fastest?
Your Worship, with regards to that, and that was not a question I'd expected, I think regardless of sort of how development occurs, because the plan is based on building up the core, the lines can roll out in sort of the same order. The project that we'll be discussing for next year's budget will be that upgrade along Lakeside and the railway bed, sort of no matter which of the quarters go first.
Okay.
So as I say, because this is up the middle, and Mark can sort of add a bit here, it's fairly development neutral in that sense.
Okay.
Basically, the offsite levy will apply to almost every development in town. So even though we may be able to allow them to tie into our network on a temporary basis or other networks, we can start collecting the money for this trunk. So it will affect everybody throughout. So what neighborhoods would benefit the most are obviously the ones on the northwest, but because they're the farthest away from the trunk sewer, this will shorten that distance and the overall cost for them. However, everyone will benefit. We had certain issues with 11-meter deep sanitary sewer going through our pivot fields, which now has our new lease on it, so which is now not going to be developed as industrial for a long period of time. So there's some challenges with the old plan that this will address, especially with the changes that the council of the day and today have made.
Okay. So like we are going to be front-ending some of the costs, though, correct?
That is correct.
And so do you have an idea? Like, I guess my question is, like, is there a certain neighborhood that will get us that money back the fastest? Like, if they, if they develop, the quickest, is it going to come back the fastest in any particular neighborhood?
No, because it will be an off-site area, off-site levy to, so we do it per hectare. This is the total area, and the first 20 hectares, it just goes to that price. So we'll cover the entire town that benefits from the trunk ultimately.
Yeah. And
whoever the first, I don't know if it's 100 hectares or 150, I can't remember off the top of my head, they will all pay towards that trunk, no matter where they are in the neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Deputy Mayor Sobel, and then Councillor Peterson.
Thanks, and just very shortly, as I think I believe I said when we were briefed on this before in the committee of the whole, this is brilliant. And what I really like about this is this gives future councils some direction, some specific direction. So if there's a desire for developers to go ahead with this, it's kind of, we're going to react to the developers' focus and action rather than trying to entice developers and spending all this money and not really being sure that this is going to happen. So it's more focused on our development in town, and I just think it's really you don't mind investing in something if you know it's going to be worthwhile in the end. And I think this is something that might guarantee that, or at least point to that direction. So good job on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. So while I agree generally with this, I have some questions more specifically, or generally, depending on your context. When I was reading through the background and thinking about what happened in the early 2000s to 2010 that you talked about, this was a time when all the developers had come together to all agree to pay for the line, and the town did an endeavor to assist. Is that what this references at this time? I remember those days. And so when I look at the development on page 49, or page 3 of 4 of this document, in the second paragraph, it notes that the development east of town would be served by a 450 millimeter line. And so my concern with that is that I think that it hasn't been decided in this council, and certainly not in previous councils, what will eventually happen on the south side of the number 1, specific to development. And if we go with a smaller line on that side, that is definitely going to impede any kind of all-in development in terms of sanitary line, residential, on that side. It certainly would make it more expensive.
So we do have a 900 trunk sewer coming up to basically UFA there, right?
From the other side.
Yeah, from the south side.
That's what I thought.
So from there, if there is additional higher density development on the south side of the highway, we can pull additional laterals off to service those. So if that does become a higher density or higher growth potential, we have that ability in there. So I think that answers that. The pivot lands we'll call, or the lands to the south and all the area that's covered. I've looked at basically that scoop from the bypass south of the highway, the current highway
Yep.
1 and the scoop, all that area be able to, the system will be able to accommodate that no matter what the council
No matter
decides in the future.
what has happened. Very good. And so then, in the last paragraph of that section, under discussion, also on page 3, you noted that during the plan creation, developers, that there was broad acceptance of the plan, but there wasn't complete support. So I always question that, and how much it will come back to bite us in the end before we make decisions around this table, because we've certainly had that experience before, which led to the consultation that was held at the Civic Center last year. Are you really confident that you have a significant majority?
Absolutely, and even that we've had great discussions with that one person or one developer that's was a little hesitant, and I believe he's on side as well. He's not overjoyed, but he's not offside either.
Yeah, Your Worship, with that, it's a developer who loses a competitive advantage.
Yes,
rather than
I
a
understand
developer
that,
who-
yeah.
So he's, I think he's moved on side.
Yeah.
And I'm confident saying that.
And my final note, just relative to the comments made by Councillor Montgomery, and I don't know, I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I'm not sure that this is what he was referencing, but you know, when I was lucky enough to spend some time at the Monk School, and their mantra is that everything that's done in the public sector should be judged in terms of its distribution impact. Could you comment on that? What would you say with regards to this plan before we vote on it, in terms of, this is a public sector project, no question. Do you think that there is equity in the distribution of the impact? Because we're going to hold you to it, because, you know, 3 years from now, if what Councillor Montgomery was referencing comes to fruition, and that's a problem.
I can speak either way.
No, go ahead.
So there is currently certain, so to the point, there is certain areas in town that do pay a special area offsite levy for a trunk sewer,
Yes,
and the majority of the town does not.
right. That's exactly what I was asking.
This will make the majority of the town, if not, will all basically have that fee, and it'll all be about the same. So we'll all have that fee. Now, some have a little bit better location and tie-in points, and so there's a little bit less of their own money to put in. But I believe that in general, it's as best as I can make it fair, and that's where we talked about the 3/4 section
Yep.
pods that tie into this trunk. And so as much as I can made it equal and fair, so I haven't given a competitive advantage to any one side. And I tried to also make sure that that not one developer can hold another developer hostage. In terms of, if he wants to go first, we can run a pipeline down the road right away that this other developer cannot stop him. So there's no way for one developer to, at the end of the day, not take advantage of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Just before you gentlemen leave, I had one question, and that ties in, it's kind of similar, I guess, to Councillor Peterson's comments. If this does lead to increased construction, for example, Lakewood Meadows, are our pieces of infrastructure going to be able to handle that? For example, if Lakewood Meadows takes off and really gets a lot of construction going, is the lift station at Hillview going to be able to handle that? Or does this increased construction then possibly lead to us having to create more? Like, do we have to be ready to spend more on things like lift stations?
The only, based on the studies that we have for Hillview, there is some additional capacity that they can tie into that with some additional lots without having to even do the other fourth main. The next part is they would take the fourth main down into the old rail line in 817. They'd bring a fourth main or a tie into the gravity sewer in there. So we have the capacity in that trunk that will allow that to happen for I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's in the range of, I think 50 hectares in that range that we can bring in with no problems before we have to do any more expansion beyond phase 1.
Okay, I just wanted to ensure, like Councillor Peterson was saying, I don't want to find out afterwards that the Hillview Ranch Station can't handle the capacity of the increased construction at Lakewood or Wildflower in their lift station. Thank you. Any other questions from councillors or comments? If not, I'll be looking for a motion. Councillor Bauer.
I make a motion that council adopt the Town of Strathmore Master Surfacing Study 2017 update, sanitary system prepared by All North, dated May 8th, 2017.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. You've all heard the motion. Is there any more discussion? Councillor Montgomery?
Sorry.
You've all heard the motion. All in Motion is carried. Item 7.4, the 2017 annual report. It's on page 99 of the package. And Jen Sawatsky, Manager of Legislative Services, will be speaking to this.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Administration is happy to present council with our first ever annual report for 2017. The report covers a number of accomplishments that the town has made over the past year, including some of the action plan priorities that council set in 2017, as well as the results from those priorities. We've also included in the report a number of successes from each of the departments and the audited financial statements.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions from council or comments? Deputy Mayor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not to sound like a broken record, but will this also be going on our webpage as one of our documents?
Yes, Your Worship. The intent is to have council to approve the document, and then it will be published. Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel.
I'm ready with a motion.
Thank you,
Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Sobel.
I move that council approve the 2017 annual report as presented.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. Mr. Thackeray, comment? Oh, okay, thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. And Mr. Thackeray, did you want to speak at this time?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank Jennifer and all the
department heads for working on this annual report initiative. This is our first initiative. We're very proud of it. We hope to make it better and better every year. And I just wanted to say thank you and provide recognition. I also wanted to recognize Ryan and Mark for all the work that they did on the sanitary plan. It was a lot of work coming forward, so I wanted to say thank you for that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thackeray. Councillor Peterson?
I was wondering, Your Worship, if we could make additional copies of this available in print form for groups like the Seniors Advisory and some in the FCSS office and in the library. I don't know if that's possible.
Thank you.
Yes,
Good points. Jennifer?
Your Worship, we plan on printing the document professionally and having it distributed throughout the community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer?
I'm just noticing on the first page where our Strathmore sign is, it says where quality of life is a way of life. I believe we changed that in strategic planning.
Yes, Your Worship, Council did, however, this was the 2017 report, so that will be in next year's report.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the clarification. Mr. Thackeray, did you want to add something?
Yes, thank you. You'll note that the financial statements say draft. We will have the originals put in the final document. And I also wanted to thank Mel and Val and the whole finance team for working on the financial statements. It's a lot of work. It's a ton of work, and they really put in the extra effort, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Thackeray, and I echo those thanks. It's an amazing project you guys have done. It looks very clear and concise, and I like the presentation of it as well. So thank you to the staff and admin for all their work.
Your Worship, if I could ask a question.
Councillor Montgomery with a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we will get a chance to just go over the the financial report with administration at some point. I just have a number of questions about, about the report itself.
Just more detailed, they couldn't give us answers.
Okay. We can go offline, or we can do it in committee, or do you want me to talk after committee level? Yeah, committee of the whole is fine, or whatever works for you guys. Okay, can we now come talk to you after? Sure, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Which brings us to item 7.5, communications, taxation, and assessment information video. Jennifer?
Thank you, Worship. So now is the exciting part. Communications has developed a video regarding budget and taxation, and we are going to present you with the video right now. Just so that you know, this is a draft video. There's a couple of glitches in it, but those will be resolved before we post.
Budget. It's a frightening word for some people, but if you understand the process of creating a budget, it's not so scary. Developing the town's budget is much like developing your own household budget, just on a much larger scale. First, council develops the strategic plan. This is a detailed set of directions laid out by council which guides administration. The budget implements the strategic plan on an annual basis. So, what is a budget? Well, a budget is a planned, itemized summary of money coming into the town of Strathmore, which indicates how that money is spent over a calendar year. Provincial government legislation in Alberta states, money in equals money out. This means a balanced budget. Revenue is equal to expenses. It is councillors' role to approve the yearly budget. The town of Strathmore provides many different services and programs for our residents. Council and administration must make the difficult decision to decide how the money coming in will be used to support the community. Wants and needs in the community must be debated to determine what is possible to do with the resources available. There are three main components of the budget: operating, utilities, and capital. Operating pays for the daily activities to deliver services to the community. It includes items such as worker salaries, wages, and benefits, electricity and natural gas for town buildings, supplies, fuel for town vehicles, and insurance, just to name a few. Utilities provides water purchased from Calgary for Strathmore customers and bills monthly for this service. This also includes sewer, garbage collection, curbside organics, and environmental services. The capital budget focuses on developing and maintaining our infrastructure and facilities. Now we've learned what a budget is, how the town collects money, and how council determines how to spend it. Now let's look at how these pieces work together. Money comes in through property taxes, grants, user fees, and other sources. The money collected is required for the operating, utility, and capital budgets. We've already talked about the operating budget including day-to-day expenses, but it also includes money for funding the capital budget. The capital budget pays for developing infrastructure and maintaining facilities. This connection is made through the reserve fund method. This reflects a plan now, save later approach. We've already mentioned that part of funding for the annual budget comes from property taxes. So how are annual property tax rates determined? Well, each homeowner pays property taxes based on how much their home is worth, which is determined through the annual property assessment. The values of the homes in Strathmore is then added up and divided by the town's costs as determined in the yearly budget. This gives us the tax rate. This tax rate is applied equally to all of the homes in Strathmore, and each homeowner pays according to how much their home is worth. So to summarize the budget process, money comes in through property taxes, user fees, grants, and other fees. Town council and administration, along with the input of the public, decide how best to balance the money going out. They're guided by provincial legislation. And that's how your town develops its
And that was the glitch, so.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any comments or questions from council regarding that?
There needs to be a lot more vehicles in the vehicle picture.
Big trucks with dual, yeah. Yeah, oh. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the video. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to know if this is the only one we're doing, or are we doing another one that's basically like just going to explain taxes to people?
So
Do you
this is,
understand what I mean?
yes, I do.
Okay.
So this is our first video that we're doing as an introduction, and we plan on developing a lot more videos to come.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Peterson.
I'd move that council approve the video with thanks to those who put it together, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Mr. Thackeray.
I'd just like to put in a plug. The voice of that video is our new social media fellow, Ty. He sounds fantastic, and we're really, really happy that he did it, and it sounds great. We have a few bugs to work out, but we just wanted to share that.
Thank you for that, Mr. Thackeray. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? The motion is carried. Item 8, committee reports. 8.1, reports from councillors from committees on which they sit. Then we move on to items directly related to council. 9.1, council expense transparency on page 105 of the booklet. Jennifer, Manager of Legislative Services.
What is happening? Thank you, Your Worship. This matter is coming back to council as there is a resolution that has been tabled. This item was discussed at the last committee of the whole meeting. It's now coming back for council to consider.
Your Worship?
Thank you, Councillor Peterson.
I'd like to move to table this again in light of the fact that there's a notice of motion coming forward, which I think will allow council to deal more comprehensively with this whole matter.
Okay, thank you. Is there any, are there any comments on that or questions? Councillor Cox, did you? No?
Under advisement from administration, Your Worship.
Your Worship, administration's only comment would be to ask Councillor Peterson if she would like a specific time and date to table the matter to.
At which it needs to have. I think we should, this is coming back May the 9th, so why don't we table it until May the 9th, and then, that's a committee of the whole, correct? So let's do it after, the week after, and then if it's realistic to go ahead with it, fine. If not, we can withdraw it at that point. The week after, the week
May the
after.
16th? Okay. So your motion would say to table it until the May 16th meeting?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? That motion is carried. It'll be tabled to May 16th at the regular council meeting. Which brings us to 9.2, Notice of Motion, Policy 1806. Which I guess we've just done.
You could just read it into the record.
Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas councillors are provided with remuneration and allowances for services performed or expenses incurred during the performance of duties as a member of council, and whereas council may review their compensation from time to time, now therefore be it resolved that council review council remuneration and expense policy number 1806 at the May 9th, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. So that's the notice of motion. We don't need to do anything with that. Thank you. Item 10, bylaws. 10.1, 2018 tax rate bylaw, page 109. Director of Corporate Services, Mel Titi, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have the mill rate bylaw in front of us. Council approved the 2018 operating and capital budget December 20th, 2017. And it provided for a mill rate increase of 4.9% on the residential and 6.9% on the non-residential portion of the mill rate. And this is only on the town portion, does not include the education requisition or the Wheatland housing requisition. The total adjustment for the 2018 taxes for residential property assessed at $350,000 will increase by $125 annually. $94 of this increase is for town purposes and $31 is for the education and Wheatland housing portion of the adjustment. Also, there is a new provision within the bylaw. It pertains to the Alberta Provincial Requisition for Designated Industrial Properties. Very small amount, but it is new and it deserves its own recognition. The amount of the requisition is just under $700, and it is applicable only to linear and designated industrial properties. On the opposite side of your agenda page, we put together some information pertaining to property taxes in surrounding communities and the average selling price, using the selling price as a proxy for the average residential value. And so Airdrie has the lowest property taxes on average, and Strathmore is the second lowest, and you can see the numbers there. The adjustment in tax rates aligns with the 2018 long-term financial plan that provides for long-term financial sustainability for the town of Strathmore.
Thank you, Mel. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Peterson? No? No question? You ready to make a motion? Okay, thank you.
I'd move that council give first reading to bylaw number 1807, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Councillor Cox.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 18-07.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Is there any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Corbeil.
I move the council give unanimous consent for third and final reading to bylaw 18-07.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? That motion is carried.
I did.
Councillor Bauer.
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw 18-07.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you, Mel, for your time. Item 11, I don't believe we have any urgent business. Which brings us to item 12, questions between councillors and/or council statements. Councillor Peterson?
I have a question put to me this afternoon by a resident of the community, Mr. Bertram. He wanted to thank the town for remitting one of the holdbacks and just was questioning about the second holdback. And he just wondered if there were any issues or problems with it. And
Want me to respond?
sure.
Yes, we're on it and we're just processing it. So it should all be done by the end of the week, early next week.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson, and thank you, Mr. Thackeray. Item 13, administrative inquiries. Do we have any tonight? Jennifer?
Yes, Your Worship, we have two. First is from Mayor Fuel in regards to Kinsman Park development. Could administration update council on a plan for the extra acres of land purchased for Kinsman Park? Is there a drawing or set of plans that council can see regarding the future design for these lands? Second inquiry is from Councillor Sobel. It reads, the Chamber of Commerce has expressed a desire to become aware of any and all new businesses that receive their licenses to conduct business in our community. It is their desire to make contact with these businesses to ensure that they are aware of the benefits that are available to them by becoming members of the Chamber. My question lies as to whether some mechanism can be created to ensure the Chamber becomes aware of new businesses receiving a business license, which is considered to be public information. As a councillor, this is also information I would be interested in and further inquire as to whether council can be provided with this information as well.
Thank you. Are there any other administrative inquiries? We're done? Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 14. I'm looking for a motion to go in camera. We have two items to deal with. Councillor Corbeil?
I move we go to in camera.
You've all heard the motion? All in favor? And we're going in camera at 8:10. Thank you.